Yeah,
But you've
whereabouts
been,
in the world are you at the moment?
I'm in North Carolina, so I
Oh,
I
okay.
I travel week to week for work. So I just follow the PGA Golf Tour.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah.
so working for like a small Dunedin company, animation research, and they work in with the broadcaster. So like in New Zealand, the equivalent would be Sky Sport, and we just provide a lot of like 3D technology and computer graphics and stuff, and work alongside like the commentators and
Yeah.
whoever's covering it. So yeah, I almost probably travel as much as you. I mean, I'm on the road like probably like 45 weeks of the year, um,
Yeah, yeah.
all around the states and um, back in Aussie as well. Like we do the cricket over the summer, so we do all the. I don't know how much about cricket you know, but like we provide all the like DRS technology, like all the ball tracking technology
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff. So
Oh, shit,
um,
that's pretty interesting.
yeah, it's pretty intense though because you work alongside, like you've got a headset on and you work alongside the umpires and stuff, and you're basically like, like if Kane Williamson like sends a review upstairs, it's coming to me. So it's like there's quite a bit of pressure there, but um, yeah. How are you anyway? Like you're in the Netherlands, did you say?
Yeah, in the south of Netherlands at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, things are going all right. Yeah, since I got from there, since I got over here from Tokyo, obviously it takes a bit of adapting with the time zone in there, and I think I've just got over that today. I think it's my fourth day here, so yeah, it's starting to feel a bit better over here.
Uh, what brings you to the Netherlands? Like why you're not just there for fun? So
No,
what's
absolutely
bringing you
not.
there for?
So started 2020, I signed with a Dutch team called SEG Cycling Academy, and they race all over Europe. They're a U23 team, and I guess their whole goal is to develop the best young talents in the world and send them off to the world tour, which is like the top division of cycling. Those teams do like the Tour de France and stuff like that. So yeah, I've almost been with the team for 2 years now, and because of COVID, I was one day out from my first race at the beginning of 2020 and had to come home. So now I'm one day out from my first race with the team in Europe, and I've been with them for 2 years. So it's nice
Oh
to
wow.
finally be over here and yeah, get an opportunity to race with them.
So, like, for people who don't know, like, we're sort of talking on a more holistic level. How are like those cycling competitions structured around the world? Um, is it like because I guess I can refer it to like the PGA Golf Tour, where they just travel from venue to
Mm.
venue every week and sort of qualify for different tournaments and compete with each other that way, or is it more like footy, where you build up over the course of a year and you have like World Cups and things? How have they sort of structured it around the world, and how do you fit into that right now?
Yeah, I guess with cycling, there's so many races. Like every day almost there'll be a race on, and there's quite often like three or four tours on at the same time. Like yeah, so you race very very often. For instance, in the next 2 weeks, I've got five different one day races. Like yeah, so compared to other sports, it's very busy, and I guess there's three different levels of teams. There's the World Tour, and they get invited to all the World Tour races, which is obviously like the Tour de France and all the biggest races in the world. And then there's Pro Conti, which is also a professional level, but not quite the top. They don't get invited to every single World Tour race, but they get wild card entries into the biggest races. And then there's the Conti level, which is um, yeah, I guess the next level down. They don't get invited to the biggest races in the world, but they do a lot of the same races as world tour teams and stuff as well. So they're the three levels, I guess, of professional cycling. And yeah, there's obviously different races at different levels as well that people do. So yeah, at the
Yeah,
moment, SEG is the team I'm in now. SEG Cycling is a Conti team, and the team that I'm joining for next year as well, Startup Nation, is a world tour team. So yeah, I guess the whole job of the team that I'm in now is to send riders to the very top. So yeah, I guess successfully gone through the SEG cycling regime, and I've managed to get me a World Tour contract. So SEG stands for Sports Entertainment.
Get that right.
Sorry, Sports Entertainment Group. Yeah. So, and they're an agency. So
right,
they have a lot of soccer players. I think soccer is their main sport that they're agents for, but cycling is also a big part of SEG. So yeah, they take young riders on and yeah, try to send them to the next level.
So they basically have got like a type of academy, or they work from the ground up, and then they basically just try and filter the top riders into their top team, or are they working as more of an agent to other teams? But they are competing in that top league, right?
Yeah. So my team don't compete. SEG don't compete in like the Tour de France or whatever, but they're agents for heaps of riders that are competing in the Tour de France. So yeah, I guess the whole reason the team came about actually in the beginning is they were agents for all these young cyclists, and some of them young cyclists were in teams that didn't really look after the young riders as well as they should have. They didn't really care about the best interests of the rider. They only cared about the team's interests. So the agency thought, oh, hang on, this isn't right. This shouldn't be happening. So they made their own team so they could develop their riders and send them off to the World Tour. So yeah, I guess lots of riders at the very top level are under SEG agency, but yeah, you don't. I guess they don't want their riders to stay in the academy. They want them to move on into the next level. Yeah.
So I'm just getting my head around it. So your new signing has been for a team, or has been just for the agency, or both?
But the new signing is for the team. So
right,
2 years ago, I signed with the agency and the SEG team, and yeah, now the agency got me the deal with the World Tour level team. So yeah, I'm still under SEG's agency for next year. They're still my agents and everything, but yeah, I'll be riding for Israel Startup Nation on the World Tour.
Shit, man, that's pretty exciting. Yeah, congrats. Was it a long time coming, or did it come as a bit of a shock?
It's always been my goal, and yeah, I think I'm really lucky. I've been able to do it with the no racing I've done in Europe, because obviously with the team being based in Europe and cycling as a whole being based in Europe, yeah, many people have to spend a lot of time racing here and battling for results to go up to the next level. So with COVID, I was stuck in New Zealand, and I was able to make the most of the opportunities that I was given in races in New Zealand. And yeah, the agency was able to get me a World Tour contract. So yeah, I think yeah, I'm pretty lucky that I have been able to move up to that next level. But yeah.
Let's take you back to New Zealand. You know, growing up down south in Ototara like myself, like, did you ever find yourself thinking that you wanted to become a professional cyclist? Did you ever think that was actually going to be on the radar?
Yeah, it's hard to know if I actually did think it was realistic or not. I think I definitely had the goal growing up. That was what I dreamed of, and I think the more impossible it felt, the more it was attractive to me. Not many cyclists make it to the World Tour from New Zealand, let alone in Chicago. So I always looked up to World Tour riders like they're superheroes. Like yeah, I thought it was, yeah, I guess how young kids look at All Blacks in New Zealand. That's how I looked up to World Tour riders. So yeah, it was always a goal, and it was always where I wanted to be. But yeah, it's a pretty surreal feeling that it's going to come a reality next year.
Are the facilities down in Southland like some of the best in the country? And like at any point in like growing up cycling, did you ever feel like you were held back in any ways, or did you ever feel like the facilities or the location that you were growing up in were holding you back?
The facilities in Southland, as far as track goes, and the support systems are truly world class. Like I always I always thought being in Invercargill in New Zealand and so far away from, I guess, the hub of cycling was a disadvantage. But the more I travelled and met people from overseas, I realised how lucky we actually were in Invercargill. Like people like the Academy of Southland and just the velodrome and all the support we get there from like the community trust and everything like that. It's truly world class. Like even people in the best place in the world to grow up as a cyclist didn't get the support I got from people in Southland. So yeah, as I meet more people, I realize that there was, in some ways we're a disadvantage, but as far as support and facilities and everything, it was really, really lucky to come from Southland.
It seems like that was like quite fundamental and laying quite a good foundation, and like having that, those support structures there and the facilities there really laid that foundation quite nicely. How was the competition growing up? Like when did you realize that you were like half decent?
Yeah, it's a hard one to tell, really. I guess in under 15s, the youngest you can start racing nationals in New Zealand, and I guess I started picking up medals and national titles at that age, and I just really, really loved the sport. But I always wanted to do it as a career, but it wasn't probably until 2019 that I really realized I could pursue it as a career. Even my last year in high school, I wanted to go to uni and study law. Like I wasn't sure if I was really good enough to pursue it as a full-time career. But my last year in high school, I broke my back, so I didn't actually have the best season as a last year junior. So I guess that probably added to why I had them doubts if I could pursue it as a career. But 2019 just changed everything for me. I think a lot of opportunities came and a lot of things went my way, and then my perspective definitely changed from then on.
I didn't realize that. So like in your last year of school, so was that 2019 or 2018?
2018. Yeah.
2018. How did you break your back?
I was out training on like 2Ks from my house, just is it Ototara Road, I think, just setting up past the airport, the back roads, and I was on my time trial bike, and on the time trial bikes, you're in the aero bars, and you quite often have your head down. And the car pulled out of the driveway, and I just presumed it sped off, but it pulled out of the driveway and stopped, and I just had my head down and rode straight into the back of it. So yeah, that was I think that was February, and that year I had lots and lots of ambitions on the road and the track overseas. So it sort of held me back a lot, and I think I had eight or 9 weeks off the bike after that injury. But yeah, I rehabbed properly and haven't had an issue with my back since.
So I guess
it was a good.
It was 8 or 9 weeks off the bike, but then I guess would you lose a lot of your like base fitness, and like you just have to basically rehab from scratch, or was it a case of just like you were just happy to be walking again?
Yeah, I was quite lucky that it was a stable fracture in the T1 vertebrae, so I didn't have to have surgery, and it was a very stable injury. So I was quite lucky in that sense. It could have been a lot worse, but it caused me to miss a lot of the selection races and a lot of big races in New Zealand and Australia. And I really wanted to do the road worlds that year and race a lot in Europe on the road. But because I missed all the selection events, I obviously wasn't selected for the road worlds and stuff. But fortunately, I had a really good reputation on the track. And even though I missed track nationals, I was able to get selected for track worlds. But because of the 8 or 9 weeks off, my build up to the track worlds were so rushed. I didn't have that base, I guess. So as a team, we performed really well at track worlds, but individually they were still not what I hoped. And so I guess that probably changed my perspective moving forward, but I was probably a little harsh on myself considering what I had been through. So yeah, it was really refreshing to have such a good end to that year season and such a good start to 2019.
At the time though, like you would have felt like pretty bad about life, you know, because you would have been working hard, you know, for a number of years, and you have something like that happen, and you're like, what did I do to like deserve this in a way? But how did you have any like coaches or anyone to actually put you back on your feet and actually give you, or how did you change your like attitude towards it and use it um, as an advantage, I guess?
Yeah, I guess that's where the support in Southland comes up. Like Academy Southland, people involved there were really, really helpful. And when the injury first happened, all what I wanted to do was get back on my bike. I think I tried, like I was trying to rush things, and then I had, I guess I was known in New Zealand as a talent coming through. So I had people that were at the very top level in cycling, like Julian Dean, who's an ex-pro and now works with a world tour team, messaging me and just saying, "Hey mate, like you're 17 years old. Don't rush things like this. You really want to take your time and do it properly so you can have a long career in the sport." So, and obviously Academy Southland as well, supporting me and making sure I took my time with the injury. And in the long term, I think it could have even been a positive on my career. Just having that time off, I was able to really reconnect with all my friends that I guess hadn't been spending much time with because of my ambitions and everything with cycling. So it was really cool. I got to really enjoy my last year in high school, and yeah, and then after the 8 or 9 weeks, I was more motivated than ever, obviously, to get back into it and everything.
How much of cycling would you say is gene related and comes down to it? Like, for example, Michael Phelps talks about like talent and hard work and stuff gets you like a lot of the way, but like
Mm.
when push comes to shove, you need the right like physiological structure and body to actually do it. Like if you're like a 7 foot guy who's 180 kgs, you couldn't be a professional cyclist. Is a lot of it down to luck like that, or do you think it's just talent and hard work?
Um, yeah, I think definitely a bit of both. It's funny you asked this question because my little sister actually did a study on nature versus nurture, and she put a lot of effort into that study. So um, yeah, probably better to ask her that question. I'm I'm truly not don't have much of an opinion on it really. I think it's definitely both. Yeah, yeah. It's quite a savage quote that one of my teammates in 2019 always had is, "If you've got it, you've got it." But I don't think it's all necessarily down to that. Yeah, obviously you got to put in the hard work and everything, especially with cycling. I mean, I'm sure all sports take a lot of commitment, but cycling's just, I think, on a whole nother level. You've got to really, really commit to all the one percenters and the amount of time and just everything involved with it. Yeah, it's a pretty full on sport, and it definitely takes a lot of commitment and sacrifices.
Let's go into the more high performance side of things and the discipline involved. Um, Generally speaking, like how much discipline is involved with what you do?
Um, yeah, I guess just like the little things like sleep and nutrition are really, really important. And I always think back to what I learned at Academy Southland. I've mentioned them a few times, but it's incredible at the time going through them lessons in year 11 and 12 with Academy. I didn't think much of it. I just thought, oh, yeah, I guess I subconsciously took everything on. But it's in the last few years when I meet everyone that didn't have people like the Academy Southland that don't know all the ins and outs of nutrition and the benefits of all the one percenters, that I think, wow, that was really, really valuable that I did learn that at the time. And I guess it made me pretty full on early on. I remember going to a few of my mates like 16th or 18th birthdays when obviously you're starting to drink and everything, and I remember going to some of my best mates' parties and drinking the cow milk out of the cow shed. Like I was pretty serious at an early age. I think yeah, I've loosened up a bit now and really, really um make the most of the times you can enjoy yourself. But yeah, yeah, it definitely takes a lot of sacrifice, and especially over the last 18 months being stuck in New Zealand going through 2 winters, whereas most cyclists just summer, like summer in Europe and then summer in New Zealand. It's a pretty good lifestyle normally, but yeah, over the last 18 months when we've been in New Zealand preparing for the Olympics and not being able to race overseas, it was yeah, it's definitely a tough man sport. I'd say that much.
Yeah, I think like from a personal perspective, like my last winter, I was mid like 2019. I've just gone like summer to summer for work, but
it's the dream.
Yeah, it's good, but I still can't get a tan. Bloody Southlanders. Take me through like a normal week for you, like a daily structure, like this, or like a race week, for example. Is like how strict is it? Is your diet completely planned? Is your training like completely planned? Sleep and all that, or is it just a lot of personal responsibility around your own performance?
Oh, some people are really strict and planned in that way. I really like the more casual approach. I've got nothing planned. I leave everything quite. Yeah, I've got a really relaxed approach to racing now, and I think that's because I've got such a good understanding now of what works for me with sleep and nutrition and everything. So yeah, I think yeah, as a normal week. Well, this week especially, it's been a lot of resting coming off the games, and these first few races, I think, more just about learning other than performing well. So I guess my approach has been a wee bit different.
What type of coaching structure do you have? Do you have like a range of coaches that help with different things, like a mental coach, a performance coach, and all this sort of stuff, or do you have one coach that does everything?
No, there's definitely a lot of coaches involved. With the track team, I've got two, I guess, performance coaches there, and then on the road with BCG, I've got a performance coach there. So I sort of switch between them guys depending on my focus. Obviously, leading up to the games, I was with the track coaches, and now that I'm focusing on the road for the next wee while, I'm with my road coach, and then obviously we've got gym coaches, and there's you're pretty well supported in Cycling New Zealand with nutritionists and physios and all that. So yeah, there's a lot of people involved, and yeah, it's pretty humbling to have that many people on my side that support me and that I can talk to about everything.
Do you have, or do you seek support from the mental side of things, like to get you in the right frame of mind for races, or to put you in the right headspace, or have you basically got that pretty well structured for yourself?
Yeah, it's something I have a pretty relaxed approach to. There's definitely lots of support in that space for the people that need it and want to use it. I haven't found myself needing that support. And up until the Olympics, I always thought I never got nervous for races anymore. I really enjoyed what I was doing, and I thought it was a pretty awesome approach that I could turn up to racing and never get nervous. All what I was doing was enjoying what I was doing, and I was excited to race all the time. But the Olympics was a whole nother game, really. With so many people watching and the high pressure, it was definitely some nerves there. But yeah, without the mental support and everything that I received early on, I probably wouldn't be so relaxed in my approach.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to touch on the Olympics soon. Take me through like the Tour of Southland. Like when was your first tour, and why is it a special race?
My first proper Tour of Southland was end of 2018, but there's also a junior Tour of Southland, which ranges from under 13 all the way up to under 19. So I did my first one in 2011, I think. Yeah, it would have been 2011. I did my first junior Tour of Southland, and I did the junior Tour of Southland every year up until 2018. And in 2018, I did the junior tour and the senior tour. So done the senior tour 2018, 19, and 20 now. So yeah, obviously it being a home race is really special, and just knowing every single road that you're on and the support on the road as well. But it's funny because I always thought it was so special because I was from Southland, but you have the Australians, the Americans and so on that come and do the race and say the same thing. It's definitely a special race, and I haven't quite put my finger on what makes it so special, but I think it's just how much the community gets behind it, and just the style of racing as well. And you never know what to expect. Every single day is tough, and you can expect snow or wind or whatever it is. It just makes the race special.
Is the junior race the same? Is it structured the same as the men's race?
No, it's not. It's quite different. It's 6 stages over 3 days, the junior one, and the senior one's 8 stages over 7 days. Yeah,
because you found yourself pretty competitive straight away when you got into the men's competition, right? You were competing with the top boys in there.
yeah. I think I had a few top 3 finishes in my first tour, and then I think I was somewhere in the top 10 on GC as well. So yeah, I think growing up, I always trained with my older brother and his mates, and I always really enjoyed racing up the grade. I guess racing with the older people and being in a field where I wasn't expected to go well. So compared to racing with all the people in my age group, I didn't enjoy that as much as racing up against the older guys. And yeah, I guess I saw it as more of a challenge, and it was more unexpected to be able to hang in there and do well.
What goes into like performing with those types of guys? Like, you say like you preferred to have that, like in a way, like an underdog mentality. Like you had no pressure on yourself to actually do well. Is it much like a warrior type mentality where it's like winning or nothing, or are you not that sort of strict about it?
I think it's not backing down from, I guess, the older riders, not being intimidated by them. I think is really big, and that's funny I say that because that's probably something I struggled with at the Olympics. I think I felt quite intimidated in that field, whereas yeah, jumping into the seniors, I remember some of the senior riders when I was just an under 19 racing with them mentioning they couldn't bully me like they bullied other juniors. Like if they told me what to do, I'd know that I shouldn't do that. And whereas they'd tell other juniors to do it, and they'd just do it because they're intimidated by them. So I guess that's a big thing you've got to take into account when you're racing with, I guess, as an underdog. Yeah, and it's probably something I didn't I didn't approach the Olympic Games like that, which in hindsight I wish I had. But I guess it's such a big field and such a big stage that it probably takes a lot of experience and confidence to race at Olympic Games without any intimidation.
Moving on to the Olympic Games, like congrats for even making the team, man. That was pretty cool to see someone from Southland boys and Invercargill competing at the Olympics. It doesn't happen very often. What was the path like to get to the Olympics? Was it always on the agenda? How many years out were you actually planning for it, or was it just a like on the side thing? If it happened, it happened.
The Olympics is the pinnacle of track. It's where every track rider dreams of competing. So I remember in 2016, again in the academy, they wanted us to write down all their goals, and I wrote down on the piece of paper the 2020 Olympic Games. But I know at the time I didn't actually think it was realistic. And up until even in 2019, I remember, well, it might have been into 2018. Sorry, my coach Sid Cumming was up in Cambridge with Cycling New Zealand, and they said that there's no way anyone new was going to get into the squad and push for an Olympic Games spot. And I wasn't in the squad then. I remember hearing that and being pretty let down that my chances of getting in the team are so slim. So even start of 2019, I thought there was very little chance of me getting in the team, and then opportunities came up. There was a few injuries in the team, and I got called up, I think, an hour before the flight left to the Poland Elite Worlds, and asked to come because of an injury. So, and that sort of slingshotted me into the picture into the elite team, and then I guess took every opportunity from there and proved myself where I needed to, and earned that spot in the team.
How, like, I am an outsider to cycling. You moved up to Cambridge for a period of time. Why does Cambridge attract high performance athletes for people who don't know?
So Cambridge is where they call it the home of cycling. It's the velodrome in Cambridge, and that's where Cycling New Zealand's based. So if you're carded, which means you're supported by High Performance Sport New Zealand, you're required to live in New Zealand. So we train together all the you're required to live in Cambridge. So when I got carded, I moved up to Cambridge and into a flat there and just started training full time with the squad. So I guess you're required to once you reach that level. And it's a really nice town. The road riding's good. It's a nice team to be involved in.
And is that when you first got a sense that you were on the fringe of making the elite team? Like, did you always think that you were just an injury away of making that squad?
That's probably when I realized I was on the fringe of making it. And then end of 2019 was when we had the World Cups. There was 3 back-to-back World Cups, and that was pretty much the trial, I guess. If you performed well there, they were going to select you for the World Championships at the start of 2020, and they pretty much said if the World Championships team will more than likely be the Olympic team unless anything really bad happens. So I performed really well in the World Cups, and I knew I deserved that spot after the World Cups. And I guess when the team was announced for the Worlds and we performed really, really well at the Worlds, that's when I was pretty confident in the team for the Olympics.
What are the different categories of racing on track, and what are you involved in?
The different races, there's World Cups, and there's normally about 5 or 6 of them a year, and they're qualifying for World Champs and Olympics. So World Champs, there's obviously just one of them a year, and that's I guess every other year apart from the Olympics is the pinnacle event of the year. And then obviously just the Olympics is the big one every 4 years. So that's the top level of track cycling. And then within track cycling, there's endurance riders and sprint riders. I'm an endurance rider, and at the Olympics there's just 3 events: the Madison, Team Pursuit, and Omnium. And then at the World Champs and World Cups and everything, there's also the individual pursuit, points race, and scratch race, and now the elimination as well, which is going to make its debut at the World Champs this year.
So at those World Champs, were you in the team, the team category
team
and the sprint ones as well?
No. So only on very, very rare occasions would a rider do an endurance event and a sprint event.
Right.
It's pretty unheard of.
You need to be a freak.
Cyclist. Yeah. It'd be like putting a marathon runner in the 100-meter sprint.
Yeah,
it doesn't really happen. Well, it doesn't happen. So sprint riders' physiology is a lot different. They look more like the Eddie Dawkins, for example. They're a lot more muscly and spend a lot more time in the gym than us endurance riders.
And when the call up actually happened, talk me through the announcement for the Olympic team. How many people were in your squad? Do you remember what happened when you got announced in the team?
There's 5 of us in the direct squad, and then there's one travelling reserve who was your close mate Nick Kyrgyzou. He came with us to Tokyo as well and supported us all the way through, and he did an awesome job. We were all really aware that the World Champs team in 2020 was 95% likely to be the Olympic team. So for us, that was really the Olympic selection, was the World Champs selection. And we were all at the same road race down in Wellington the day it got announced. So I guess we all showed up at the start line that morning, and there's some disappointed riders and obviously some very happy riders. So it was a pretty special moment for me. I was pretty confident I had done with it. what I needed to earn that spot. And I personally think the right selections were made, and it was a great group of guys, and we had an awesome bond and awesome environment leading up to the games.
Are you considered young to be in the team, or is like when do cyclists generally peak performance wise?
Yeah, definitely am considered young for the team. I think in my direct team there was another 23-year-old who's a couple of years older than me, and then the rest of the team are late 20s. One of them in his 30s. So I guess the peak is probably, I'd say, between 25 and 30. So yeah, hopefully still improving and developing.
Sure, that must make you pretty excited, like to know that you've got a potential, I mean, like 10, 15 years potentially, like still competing at a high level. That must be pretty cool.
Yeah, it is exciting to think of, and that's why these Olympics and every race I'm doing right now is really about learning and developing still, because I think I've still got a long time left in the sport to really achieve some cool things.
Talk me through Tokyo, like race days and how the races went. Like we were obviously, there's a lot of New Zealanders following those races, and how they went. Talk me through those race days. Were you nervous as anything? Were you just pretty confident in yourself and your preparation? Was it different to a normal race leading up to it?
Yeah, it definitely was different. The Olympics are so different to anything I've experienced before. Just the pure level of the event and everything that's riding on it, and the support back home and everyone watching. It was definitely a lot different to anything I'd experienced before. The actual racing was quite a weird situation for me. There's 5 riders that are in a team pursuit team, and only 4 line up on the day. So leading up to the events, all 4 of my teammates had been absolutely flying and going really, really well. And I probably came onto form a wee bit later than them. Once we got to Tokyo, I really felt good, but those other 4 had proved how well they were going. So it was a wee bit of a weird situation for me. Qualifying started, and those 4 boys were riding, and I was watching and helping them prepare and everything, expecting to maybe ride the second round or the final later on. And all 4 of them boys went out and absolutely nailed their jobs and just rode incredibly. Like, I was so proud to watch them turn up on the day and turn up on, all 4 of them, I think, the best form of their lives, and absolutely nailed their jobs. Was a pretty proud moment. And I knew when I saw that it would be a tough ask for me to come in and do any of their jobs better than what they did. So I knew myself that I probably wouldn't be riding the next round. And when that decision came, it wasn't disappointment. It was more, I'm only not riding because my 4 best mates are absolutely nailing their jobs. And I knew if the same thing happened in the semi-final, I probably wouldn't ride the final. So it was pretty gutting with all the build up and everything leading up to the games, that it was looking like I wasn't going to ride. But at the same time, I knew it was the right decision, and the boys came out in that second ride and absolutely nailed their jobs again, and were so close to making that gold final. It was pretty hard to watch them miss out by that much, but again, they just rode awesomely and showed they were really capable of winning the gold there. So I knew after that ride as well, it would have not been a smart idea to put me in for the final.
I'll stop you there. Like, it's such a good attitude to have when it comes to a team sport like that. Are you competing against those fellow cyclists, or are you more so like competing against the stopwatch that gives you like more of a relative understanding as to what other countries are doing? Or is it the question is like, are you competing against your fellow riders, or more so like times?
In the team pursuit, it's just purely competing against the time. When it comes to the medicine, which I did at the Olympics, and the Omnium, it's purely against the other riders, and time's got nothing to do with it. So the team pursuit, which I was just talking about, is purely against the time. And it was quite funny leading up to the games because nobody had competed in 18 months? Yeah, 18 months since the Worlds in the beginning of 2020. So nobody knew who was going to turn up and go really well or what anybody had been doing in training. So it was quite funny leading up to the games, just having absolutely no idea what to expect from all the other nations. And it was by far, I think, the most entertaining team pursuit competition ever the world's ever seen. Like, just how fast the teams were going, how close the races were, and obviously there was quite a lot of drama involved with crashes as well. So it was an awesome team pursuit event, and I think the diehard track fans, I think it's one everyone's going to remember for a long time.
Talk me through those crashes. Like, I was following the live updates on stuff, and you came off your bike at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, so that was in the Medicine. It's funny you ask about it because it happened. The Medicine's a 200 lap race, and my crash was, I think, in the first 10 laps. So the crash happened and adrenaline was rushing. I bounced straight back on my bike and got on the track. And then after the race, I got asked about it in the interview, and I just had absolutely no recollection of how the crash happened. And I still have no recollection. There's a video of the aftermath of the crash about a second or two after I fell off the bike. So, but I can't actually remember how it happened. Obviously, so much happened in the next 190 laps. But it's funny. About 20 laps after the crash, a Dutch rider crossed over my wheel, and I came unclipped and almost crashed again. So I managed to hold that one up. But it was definitely a rough start, and I think the nerves and intimidation I felt probably had a little to do with it.
That's insane. Like, do you ever prepare for something like that to happen? Like, are you just told to, like, right, get back on your bike and just gun it, or you can't prepare for something like that?
You expect crashes to happen, especially in the Medicine. It's a hectic event, and there's so much chaos out there on the track. But it's funny when people crash. Normally, they take a second to get back up and check their helmet or check they're all good, and then get back up on the track. But I guess because I was so eager and had so much adrenaline running, I hadn't even stopped sliding off the track by the time I got back on my bike. So I bounced straight back up, and just with the adrenaline I had, I didn't even feel the effects of the crash until after the race. And I'm still pretty banged up now, but things are coming right.
So in terms of those, so you competed in 2 races, right? Like those two categories. Talking about like the results, were they, for anyone who weren't following, were they like as you guys expected, or did you believe that you could actually put a bit more on the table?
So I was in the team pursuit team, but I didn't end up getting a ride for the team. So I didn't compete there at the Olympics, but I competed in Medicine. As far as the results go, we were hoping for gold in the team pursuit, but a medal would have also been really nice. And the way the team turned up and the way the team rode, they were really capable of gold. And if it was run again, we could win gold, I believe. And there was really 3 teams, I think, that were separated themselves from the rest of the field. And so we lost to Italy in the semi-final, which put us in the bronze write-off in the team pursuit. And then a heartbreaking scenario where one of our riders crashed, and the bronze write-off meant that we come home empty-handed. So that was probably the most heartbreaking sporting moment of my career. Even though I wasn't in the team for that ride, I'd obviously spent the last few years training for this one race with all them boys, and we were, I believe, a lot better than the Australian team that we were riding against in the bronze final. And for us to be capable of gold and to come out of the games empty-handed in the team pursuit was a really hard moment for the team. So in that sense, it was a slight disappointment, but the way the team rode and the time we put down in the semi-final, it proved to ourselves and it proved to the world that we were one of the top teams. The medicine as well, I wasn't initially supposed to do, but in the crash in the team pursuit, Aaron Gate, one of their more accomplished riders, broke his collarbone. So I had really been building up just for the 4K event. So to then jump into 200 lap medicine I wasn't quite as prepared as I could have been. And I think I lacked a bit of experience there. And I think I can be proud of the way I did ride, but it wasn't a result I'm going to be talking about for it's not a result I'm going to remember, I guess.
When that call up did come to compete in that race, how specific did your training become, and do you actually end up changing much of your preparation leading up to it? Because I would imagine you wouldn't have a lot of time.
Yeah, well, I only had 3 days, so I guess when I found out, it was there wasn't a lot I can do. You can't train for a 200 lap race in 3 days. But I'd done some work that the other boys had done leading up to that race, so I was confident I'd be there physically. But it was just the technical side of it and the experience of racing that race at the level that I obviously couldn't prepare for in 3 days. So yeah, physically I think I was well enough prepared. I just wasn't quite there technically.
Were you guys based in the village, or were you based elsewhere?
No, we were in a satellite village. So the velodrome was a few hours south of Tokyo. So yeah, it was a cycling specific village. The mountain biking was also there. So yeah, I guess it was quite low key, I guess, compared to the main village. Is a lot smaller venue.
Was life over there as strict as the media portrayed it to be? It felt like you guys basically couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I think it was strict, but it needed to be, and they did a great job of it. I think we felt safe the whole time, and it was. Yeah, I think it was really well run with the circumstances, and big success, I think.
What was one thing that surprised you in Japan?
I guess the staff involved with the Olympics. There was hundreds of them. It's so many staff, and then also the support as well. Like you heard in the media leading up that the Japanese people weren't excited about the games and weren't that keen on it, but that was a total lie. Every single person we saw was super enthusiastic, and the people were just loving it. And I think it couldn't be further from the truth that they weren't excited for the games.
Were you also excited about knowing the fact that if you did perform well, you've got teams in Europe and agencies around the world with eyes on you guys, and with that, that it could lead to future opportunities?
Yeah, I think that does excite me, but I guess I was already settled for the next 3 years with my new contract, so it was more about the moment and performing well at the Olympics that I was excited about, other than the follow-on effect of a good performance at the Olympics, I guess.
And talk me through sort of moving on from the Olympics into more contracts and ambitions and things. What goes into a contract, and is it purely based on performances, or are they quite lenient? Do they give you, as you said, a time frame of 3 years that they can just basically build on your improvement and work with you?
Yeah, I think it's mostly based off performance and what you've done leading into the signing or whatever. But every cyclist also has a power meter on their bike, and a lot of teams look at the power numbers. It's a very calculated sport, cycling. So when you do a training session, every single pedal stroke and heartbeat is recorded, and teams will look at your power profile and stuff like that. So I guess it is. I'd like to think it's 90% based off performance and your results, and 10% off what power numbers you can do. But it's probably more 50-50, to be honest. If if you've got really good numbers and maybe the odd result to back that up, it could probably be enough to get your contract at the top level as well as just results.
Are there certain styles, like do cyclists have their own like characteristics that they bring in? Like, I mean, some people would be more suited to track cycling as opposed to road racing, right? And what
Definitely.
do you find yourself more sort of steering towards?
Yeah, so there's a lot of cyclists that just do track and just use road for training, and there's probably the majority, or definitely the majority of road cyclists don't do track at all. So yeah, there definitely is different types of cyclists, and then on the road there's climbers, sprinters, and time trialists and classics riders and everything like that. So it's a very vast there's lots of different types of cyclists. I see myself as I'm quite versatile, especially at this point, obviously with the track and the road, and I'm still finding out, I guess, my identity on the road. I'm not 100% sure if I'm a sprinter or a climber yet. I know I'm not a time trialist. That's probably the only thing I do know at this point. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more learning and developing for me to do on the road.
Yeah, I remember watching the tour. The tour was at one year, last couple of years, and I saw you like basically after the race at Bluff Hill, and you just looked absolutely like just nothing left in the tank. How, like, you talk about the technical aspects and every pedal stroke and all that sort of stuff, the timing aspect of it, but how much is it just like mental grit and like ticker?
Yeah, I think it's quite rare for somebody to, like last year in the Tour of Southland that you mentioned, for a rider to win a sprint stage and be up there on a climbing stage. So I guess that's where the mental side comes in. Obviously, I've got a lot of passion for the Tour of Southland, and I think if I didn't have the passion I did for the Tour of Southland, that climb up Remarkables, I probably wouldn't have been in the front group. I was I was well at the end of my I was struggling a lot up that climb. Just won a sprint stage the day before, so nobody probably expected me to be able to hang in there with the top climbers, and the only reason I could was because the passion I had for that tour. And yeah, it ended up being worth it. And like you said, I got to the top and I was absolutely empty, probably the most empty I've ever been. I had some great facial expressions on that climb that some photographers captured.
When you started doing well on that tour, and they say you're all riding in that in a big tight bunch in that peloton, and it's a peloton, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How much of a hierarchy is there and like unwritten rules and things that go on? Do people often break the rules, and like do you know that like as a youngster you just don't do certain things? And
yeah, there's a massive hierarchy in cycling actually. There's some things you could do in the bunch because of the jersey you're wearing, and there's if you had a different jersey on, you wouldn't get away with it. So yeah, in the Tour of Southland, I knew being in Power Net was gave you a lot of hierarchy in that race. And then if you look at the Tour de France, there's the wild card like Pro Conti teams will probably find it a lot harder to ride at the front of the peloton and do stuff that the World Tour teams like Ineos, who are winning the Tour de France, can do. So yeah, there's position matters a lot. Obviously, in a bunch of 200 riders, if you're at the front, you're saving a lot more energy than being right at the back and everything like that. So yeah, being higher up in the hierarchy makes a massive difference, and that's something I'm going to learn a lot about in the next couple of weeks with these one-day races and racing lots of big names.
I'd like to finish on a couple more light-hearted questions, sort of indirectly related to cycling. But what do you like to do away from cycling? What helps getting your mind off it without saying like, binge drinking with your mates back in Southland?
When I'm home, I live in Ototara, so quite close to the beach, and I go out surfing and stuff like that. But it's been a while since I've been home, and yeah, it's a hard one really. It's been a long time since I've even had an off season. So I guess apart from going home and visiting my mates in Southland and having a wee rest from cycling, it's probably not so much else that does take up a lot of my time. I'm really into basketball, and I watch a lot of basketball and follow that pretty closely. But yeah, apart from that, I'm pretty immersed in cycling.
I found myself in Atlanta during the playoffs, and I went to the Bucks Hawks game.
Yeah,
it was game 4 when Giannis fell and like injured himself, and it was insane, man. It was such a cool place. I broke my bank going there, but I mean, if you ever get a chance to go to,
would have been worth it.
Oh, it was insane. Like, yeah. I was pretty annoyed. Trae Young was injured as well at the time, but yeah, it was pretty cool to see the Bucks like on the way to the championship.
Yeah, that finals run was pretty surreal. But even just watching Trae Young in the Madison Square Garden, that made me a fan. It was pretty cool to see the way he was treated by the crowd, and for him to turn back with the attitude he had and say some of the things he was pretty legendary.
Yeah, man. Where's your most favorite place in the world that you've been to as a result of cycling, and that you've actually had like, not like a lot of time to experience it, but you've had some time to actually soak in that you're there?
In 2019, I spent a lot of time in Asia, and I think I actually really enjoyed the culture there. I haven't had a lot of time, or barely any traveling in Europe, so that's what the next few years is going to be full of, and looking forward to that. I'm going to be living in a small town called Girona, which is near Barcelona. So yeah, it's a really nice place, and looking forward to living there. But as far as where I've actually spent a bit of time, I really enjoyed Thailand. Was probably one that stands out for me, just how different the culture is, and yeah, just a lot of reasons I think why that interests me. But yeah, I'm looking forward to exploring Europe because it seems like a pretty awesome place.
Yeah, there's some good golf in Thailand, I've heard as well. But what was I gonna last one? So if you weren't a cyclist, like what would you be doing? If you just never got into cycling, what would you think that you would be doing alternatively?
Oh, I was a really passionate rugby player growing up, but I haven't grown since I was like 13, and that's when I stopped playing rugby. So my career probably would have ended around there anyway. But I was always interested in sevens, and I think with being smaller and I think quite naturally fit, it would have suited me well. So I would have loved to have pursued a career in some aspect of rugby, but yeah, I'm not sure what I'd be doing without cycling. I'd hope I was doing another sport and succeeding in that. I really enjoy the physical challenge of sport.
Awesome, mate. Well, I won't keep you for any longer. It's been a pleasure to catch up, and it's good to see a Southlander doing well on the world stage. So yeah, thanks for your time, bro.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me, and all the best in America.
Thanks, bro.